Successful business owners are good leaders. Running your business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, in order to help you succeed. Every Tuesday evening, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share some of the secrets to their success. My name is Andrew Frazier, and I'm the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I've worked with over 500 business owners and taught thousands of people about how to grow their businesses. I empower business owners to maximize the value of their companies by helping them to grow revenue, increase profit, and obtain financing. My co-host, Arthur Jones, is the Chief Story Architect at the Art of Standing Out. He works with business owners to enhance their branding, their marketing strategies, and their success in marketing and sales. So why are we doing this? Because we're committed to you and your success as a business owner. Join us every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. for the Facebook Live broadcast. Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, is brought to you by the Small Business Pro University. We're very excited tonight to have a great topic that's valuable for everyone. We're talking about connecting the dots for success in business and life. We have a great guest here to talk about it, Don Viapree, the Don. And he's definitely done a lot of connecting the dots, and not only done it for himself, but helped a lot of other people connect the dots. As a mentor, as a colleague, as a friend, Don has done some great things in terms of helping people achieve their goals and seek higher goals. So we're going to get started with connecting the dots for success in business and in life. And I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Arthur Jones.
Hey, Andrew, thank you very much. Everyone live on Facebook, everybody listening on replay, welcome. Welcome. This is Leadership Live every Tuesday night. And I, as a co-host, have the honor of sitting beside Andrew Frazier. And I say I'm honored to do that because in the 10 years that I've known Andrew, I've learned so much about how he has cultivated himself as a leader. And I'll just summarize by saying MIT as a stellar student, officer in the U.S. Navy on board ship, running operations, going to NYU to become really astute in the business of finance and financial services, going into corporate world and again, becoming a COO in an enterprise, running one of the biggest enterprises for Black executives called the Executive Leadership Council. At each way station, each step along that journey, the thing that I really admire about what Andrew's been able to do is that he saw where he wanted to go, and then he committed to doing the work that a leader has to commit to doing to get to that next step. And then he went to the next step and to the next step. And here I am 10 years later after watching and learning all about the journey of Andrew. And he's built the Power Breakfast a decade ago to become a vibrant, thriving enterprise within the Essex County community and now New Jersey and expanding into other states. He's built a Small Business Pro University largely because he knows that to accomplish what he's accomplished on his journey, that we all need the same kind of tools and resources so we can learn how to do the work, so we can learn how to become better leaders, so we can all accomplish more. So thank you, Andrew, for all that you've done, and especially for bringing the cohort of fabulous, really stellar, talented executive talent that you've grown to know over the years onto this show so everybody can learn what they know. And tonight is no different. The Don Viapree, is all about connecting the dots. And in the conversations I've had with Don and in the research and just looking at the catalog of experiences he's had on his journey that are documented on the World Wide Web, it's really fascinating to see that, like Andrew, his trajectory, you could see him looking far into the distance, but committing to do the work to get there. And as a leader of our own business, as an employee within a business, being able to see where we want to go and then charting a course to make the moves to get there is what we should all be learning how to do. And tonight is no different. Here on Leadership Live, we will have access to Don Viapree for the next 60 minutes. And so as not to waste any of that time, I'm going to introduce Don and bring him on camera now so we can begin to talk to Don about his journey. And we'll talk first about where he's been and how he got to this moment in time. But we're going to go way back, because I think what's really interesting about Don is that whether it was in Aruba with a dad that was a Methodist minister and a Mason, or whether it was Jamaica, where he was with in a boarding school, lessons learned throughout those early years kind of informed the character that Don is, that really empowered and enabled him to become the man that he is today. Don, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Talking about connecting the dots for success. And, you know, earlier we were talking about back in the early days when mom and dad had you at home and you were the kid in school as a young person, hardly in double digits, maybe 9 or 10 years old. You were the guy in class that kept raising your hand, asking questions. And that inquiring mind still serves you today. But take us back to those early days and where it all began.
As a young child in Aruba, which was a Dutch island at the time, and education had to be in Dutch. My family, my mother being from St. Eustatius, a small island next to St. Martin. My father being from Guyana, at that time British Guyana. So English was the spoken language in my family, and Dutch was the language that I had to learn in order to be educated, because every book and every lesson was in Dutch. And so that was the first question I asked: why? It didn't make sense. And then it went further when they celebrated their equivalent of Christmas on December 5th with St. Nicholas, and Zwarte Piet, which translates from Dutch to Black Pete. And Black Pete was so white man with a face painted in black polish, thick red lips, and cracking a whip and carrying the gifts. And I wanted to know why. Why is this man with polish trying to make me afraid of him? Because I'm not afraid. By age, I think 9, I had the courage, I should say, and the intuitiveness when that Zwarte Piet on a December 5th came into my face trying to make me fearful. I used my finger and wiped off the polish off his face and asked him, why is he wearing polish on his face? And that got me in a whole lot of good trouble.
Good trouble, like John Lewis says, good trouble.
Yeah.
The Honorable John Lewis. Well, you know, that's pretty, it takes character, it takes being confident to be able to walk up to the emblematic Santa of the island and wipe the red lips off of his face. I imagine mom and dad probably had a lot to do with that. Dad being a 33-degree Mason, where a lot of that steel rod constitution comes from. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. Also, I guess the beginning of the seeds of the dot connections happened there also, because I had to be, as the first child and eldest son of my father, I had to be with him at most times, in most places. And he had started the men's club, he had started the cricket club, he was on the first board of the YMCA, he was at choir practices and everything affiliated with the church, as he was with church leadership. And on a small island like that, he was the man and the go-to person. And as a little boy, just with my crackers or my fruit, just being told to sit in the corner and observe or finish my homework, I had no choice but to pick up some of the nuggets of wisdom that I was experiencing. from the groups and collective organizations that he was exposing me to. And of course, it rubbed off on me as I continued my journey, because it is something that I picked up and continued as he passed the baton to me. And I guess that's how I evolved.
That's a great story. I mean, it sounds like Dad, with you being the eldest son and being at his side at the men's club or the cricket club or church, being part of church leadership, you were always by Dad, and you could see the men around Dad and the people gathered around him were the dots that you hear now are sharing with us the same kind of wisdom, that when you see people that are in your company that are making moves and making decisions and leading, maybe it's time to model them if they're leading in the right way. Putting those dots together, saying, I think this is the way forward. If I just model what Dad is doing and what these men that Dad is surrounded with are doing, I might do what they're doing one day. Is that a fair way of categorizing?
That's very fair. And it was always told to me around the table, at dinner time and at lunchtime, that a great deal was expected of me, being the first, especially since my mother had many miscarriages before I was born. I was looked at as sort of the miracle baby, because after that, she had no problem having the remaining three. So the pressure was placed from I was small, that excellence and success should be my left and my right hand, and that I should be born with the essence within my soul to forge and make those two things work.
Is it reasonable to say that when you were the inquisitive mind, always raising your hand and bothering the leadership in the school, not restraining yourself when you had a question, and not restraining yourself when you were curious about that red paint on the Saint Nick lips that
No, it was a black polish that I did off his face.
Black polish you did off his face? Was it
of Zwarte Piet, or Black Pete?
Black Pete. Was it reasonable to say that Mom and Dad said, maybe he needs more structure than we can give him? Maybe
That's correct, and that's what got me to Jamaica. Yeah. I was beginning to become, as they say, a little too much. And so I needed to be put in form and in discipline, and that was the next step that was charted for me.
So let's talk a little bit about the discipline that you gained when you went to boarding school in Jamaica.
That experience at age 12 was one that rocked me, because at the beginning, I'm going to another island with English being the main language, and a culture that is similar, but at the same time, very different than that of Aruba. And I have absolutely no family there at age 12. I know no one on the island, and I know nothing except the 1 month that my father had me go to some remedial training with a lady named Miss Blair, who was my instructor. And she carried a rod too. And you better get your grammar, and you better know your math in English, and you better be proper. And so Miss Blair sort of prepped me for what I was about to face in the classroom, but it was nothing like what I was about to face in the entire island, with a new guardian family that I never knew, that was a friend, that was a dot to my father, because that's how he connected, and that dot became my family. And that led me to understand that my father was able to sustain that relationship to the level where this family was willing to bring me in as one of their children, and treat me accordingly and equally with respect and dignity, and give me some vital lessons that I needed in order to adjust and assimilate into this new culture.
So sometimes sometimes challenges really turn into opportunities, because as an 11-year-old going to a new island, new language, not knowing anyone really, aside from one dot that your dad knew, you had to take all the character you had built into and packed into who you were at 11 years old, take all the integrity that mom and dad had baked into you just over those 11 years, and become a little bit more mature than you had been prior, because you're not on your own, but you were on your own. Learning to be independent, I guess, is really what sounds like the hardest part of that journey was.
Correct.
But learning to be independent and taking responsibility for your actions, I guess, is what we should do, whether we're 11 years old or whether we're 111 years old. It's just what we should be doing. Is that kind of how you thought about it?
That's exactly how I thought about it. And because I knew I was being watched in so many ways, and that my grades were going to be sent to my parents, and that I had to be not just good, but I had to be exceptional. I struggled to find the path with which to follow and the assets and the tools along the way that would shape me and mold me so that I could be and evolve into that person that my father had expected, that this family had expected. And I had to live up to the responsibilities with this newfound independence and this shocked maturity, to realize a few things. Immediately I realized, well, I don't have any resources. You know, I have to subsist based on what is given to me as what is called pocket money. Every weekend I would get pocket money to spend accordingly, and the pocket money was equivalent at that time to about 25 to 30 cents a week, and I had to make it do. And of course, after year one, year two, I said, it can't do. And I had to figure out what tools and assets am I going to use to make it do. And so I formed a business in the school, the first business the school ever had by any student. I got wholesale candy and wholesale cupcakes, and I retailed them. And I had a team of 2 other students that also took it from me. And that's how I was able to get some more pocket money.
Well, that's what leaders do. Leaders lead, even at 11 years old. That's a fascinating story. Let's jump from the entrepreneurial moment, baked goods and candy as the entrepreneur in the class that you were part of, to now you're graduating and you have a choice to go back to Aruba for holiday, or to travel with your host family to America for the first time. Can you talk about that a little bit? That when you're in Jamaica, you're kind of graduating from the boarding school, and you have a choice. You could go home to mom and dad for a holiday, or you could go on holiday with your host guardians in Jamaica.
That year was a critical year. It was 1968. It was a year in which my political philosophy, my understanding of life in general was coming into some sharp focus, given what was happening in the world at the time, with the various conflicts around the world at the time. And so after reading profusely and doing well in school at that time, being what is called a prefect, and about to become head boy the following year, every summer I was due to go to Aruba to visit my family. And the guardian family that I lived with said that they would invite me to join them in their visit to United States if I so choose to, and if my father gave me permission to do so. And so I wrote my father immediately, not willing to turn this opportunity down. And I said, my grades are good. My behavior is fine. I'm in leadership in the student body. I'm about to, get the top position next year. Please, could you, come up with the necessary change and send me some more pocket money so that I can make this trip. And my father immediately said yes. And my mother was happy that I was able to go on this also. And so I joined them on this Greyhound bus tour of continental America for $300 at the time. And we visited the majority of the states within the United States, including Canada. And so along that journey, I met hundreds of people whom I inquired and questioned, and I wish I had a tape recorder at that time, because the amount of knowledge that I got at age 17, 18, I just turned 18, was tremendous. And I collected this knowledge and pretty much used my critical analytical skills at the time and was able to package it and make sense out of it for the latter years of my life, because the dots that I had come to experience were so tremendous in evolving and maturing me and bringing some sense and semblance and light to everything that I was about.
It's really fascinating, because after that journey, you came back to Jamaica. Your last year in high school, you became the top boy. And what I'm really amazed by is that, you may have been the president of a class here in America, but you actually ran the school as head boy. Is that right?
That's correct.
What is that?
When you're a head boy at a boarding school in Jamaica, that means that you have to run the school like a general runs an army. You have to be responsible for the operation of the school. The only thing you don't do is you don't teach. You don't get to lead a classroom, but you have to get that classroom ready for the teacher. You have to ensure that the hall where the prayers are going to be held, that hall is made up and ready and broken back down after prayers. You have to assemble the younger boys, and they have to commit to listening to you and following your orders, because those are orders. There's no ifs, ands, or but. There's no excuses. If you say that they have to do what they have to do, it's got to get done, or there will be some punishment.
That's just amazing. I mean, it's one step along the way on the journey. In each step, you find more dots, and I think what's really fascinating, Don, about the skill you developed early in life is being able to identify what's a dot and what's not. I mean, because there's 7 billion people in the world. There weren't that many back in 1960s, but there's still a lot of people, and they're all not dots. And when I say dot, a dot is someone that you can collaborate with to create something greater than it was before, right? And it's like the old African proverb. It sounds like the old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Together, that's right.
And going together isn't just enough. It's going together with the right dots, as you would call them, right? Because if you surround yourself with the right people, then you will, in fact, go far. And it sounds like you have an innate ability to identify a dot this dot's going to be valuable. This one, not so much, but that one, stick with that one. Can we talk a little bit about the filter that you use when you're assessing how to make a dot a better dot?
In my journey as a people person, as a deep, lovable, and respectful person of everyone whom I come into contact with, I always want to know first, how can I, with my assets, with my experience, with my tools, how can I be of service to them or their family or their children or their loved ones or their friends? What is it that I have that they could possibly tap into in order to give more value or more progress to the life of someone else in their circle. That's the first thing that I do. And I don't do it because I need or want something from them. I do it because this is who I am. This is what I have become. This is what I've evolved to based on the experiences that I've accumulated throughout my life. Because my life could not have been my life had it not been for the service of so many people that brought so many things into my life. And so that's why I start like that. And having started like that, the next thing I want to do is to see how I can improve their life in anything that they need personally for themselves. And I'd like to get to know their experiences that they have had along the way. In getting to know their experiences, I then begin to tap into whether someone else last week, last month, last year may have wanted something that they mentioned or needed something that they mentioned. In which case I immediately stop and say, well, can I put you in touch with such and such a person that needs such and such? Or I suggest that you join me at a reception or a meeting, etc., so that I can introduce you to someone who you can be helpful to. And that is sometimes done in aggregate and sometimes done on an individual basis.
You know, I have the seat as the co-host and I get to ask you any question that I want to, and I'm kind of blocking Andrew because I have more questions I want to hear and answers about this, the journey in particular, but about this notion of servant leadership that you're so committed to, about this idea of you got to give to get, right? You got to give to gain. And if you're not willing to give, then maybe you don't deserve to get anything in return. And
yes, and if you don't gain anything, that is fine. I'm not giving in order to accept or expect a gain. I'm giving because I know in my heart and in my experience that there will be gain. There will be gain when I see that person or business or that person's organization or family begin to make progress. And the progress that they would have made, I don't need the credit for necessarily, and don't want or ask for the credit or expect it. I just want them to do the same for someone else.
I called up here in my tablet in front of me, and it's servant leadership. And servant leadership is the philosophy in which the main goal of the leader is to serve. This is different from traditional leadership, where leaders' main focus is the thriving of their company's organization. This is really to be in service to something greater than yourself. And that's helping other people. That is not just admirable, that's making meaning in the world. And I think another way of saying what you just said is that if you build a life of intention to make meaning in the lives of other people, then you'll make money. Don't worry about it. But you surely make meaning, and that has more value than a lot of money in the world. So
it has more value than Fort Knox put together a million times. Because what happens when you create networks that work, and you create concentric circles, and you create multiple platforms where people are integrated to connect and bring value to each other. You end up on a daily basis having a list of people that you ordinarily must contact in order to sustain the networks in the circle. You don't want to just pop up into somebody's life because you need something. You want to stay on their trajectory. You want to know what is happening with them and their family. You want to show empathy and compassion because that's who you are and that's what you're about. And so that when you become this type of person, whatever you ask for and whatever you need, it will always be provided for you. And if it cannot be, the people will go head over heels to try and help you find it, so that you can fulfill whatever objective it is that you wish to fulfill.
That's very powerful. And you know, we have another kindred spirit that believes what you believe, Don, and that's Andrew Frazier. and I'm gonna stop dominating the conversation and hand the mic to Andrew now, because I know he's got questions and wants to dive into the conversation. So Andrew, please get in here and let's talk with Don some more about servant leadership, connecting the dots for success.
Thanks, Art. And thanks again, Don, for being here. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. Also, we've got a great Facebook family joining in. Nefertiti's here with us, Adrian, Nadia, Jeff, Casey, Kimmy, William, Shantae, Sophia, and many others. And, really this topic hits home, connecting the dots for success in life and business. And, having known Don for many, many years, and he's connected dots for me and for many others. But one thing I've always found is, he's always forward thinking. And one of the things that he always encourages me to think about is new technology and where technology is going and how to understand technology. So Don, you want to talk a little bit about how to connect the dots around technology? Because I think that's a key area that's even more important now than ever before.
Yes. Well, I hesitate there because I think not just in leap years ahead, because I'm a great fan of what is called trending and trend factors. So I'm on the cusp of the knowledge of things that are being researched now that will roll out within the next 30 years. And it makes me cringe sometimes when I read these things, but I have to remind myself, as I am reminding you right now, that in a population of over 7.2 billion people, that it's really only a small amount, let's say 2 billion, something that really have access to most aspects of current technology, much less future technology. And so I'm very concerned about those left behind. I'm very concerned about those that have no access and those that have a little access. And so I create circles and dots with those people also. Fortunately, they have telephones. And so I'm able to stay connected with them as I try to get them to the next level by bringing assets and tools to bear. But within current technology, connecting the dots have made things simpler, quicker, more efficient, much more improved, and much more faster. The platform can be much wider, much higher if necessary, because with the networks that I seek to build, as I said, they're not just wide, they must also be high. And by being high, I mean, if you want to be introduced or be connected to someone that is about to go on a shuttle and go up in space, I am sure I could find a way to get you connected to that too. That's the height, if that's the height you want to go. If it is about finding someone or something in a business or an organization or a foundation, etc., that's as wide as it can go. It is endless. It is infinite due to the current technology, and it is fast. Because if I don't know someone who knows, I know someone who knows someone who knows.
Excellent. So technology is key. Another theme that you always talk about that's important, not just focusing on the United States, but focusing globally. You've done that yourself, traveling through countries. Fortunately, due to COVID, you're actually here, so we could get you on the show.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, but fortunately, we've got you here. You connected me with someone in South Africa at a university that could be interested in what I'm doing. You have people connected all over the world. talk a little bit about how we can be more global and how we can more effectively connect with people and really bring value for us and for them.
The global connections are enormous in terms of their opportunities and their potential. The possibilities are endless, just because people who are outside of the United States have a different perspective and view about what takes place in the United States. And so they're very receptive to bridging a gap or finding the seeds to create a relationship. And they're open and willing. And when I say open and willing, I mean, if you're looking for a partner in business, if you're looking to speak, if you're looking to get some products or send some products or inquire about anything, they are so wide open and so receptive that you would wonder immediately if there is some game going on, because you probably never, experienced anything such as that. They're not just willing to give you and offer you what it is that you're asking. They're opening the doors to things that you didn't ask for, that are related. So they get the dot philosophy immediately, and it could be expansive for anyone, because if you're trying to find something or someplace, it begins to stretch like a spider web as quick as they begin to open it up for you and with you. And so I've known people and I've known persons and entities that have benefited from this, and in so many ways that they did not expect. Every time I meet a person, I always start from the global perspective and then bring it down to the local perspective, because I understand from my own development that if you think expansively, and if you ponder and meditate openly about the endless and infinite options that this short life provides you, then anything on a micro level is easily doable. If you think the micro level is difficult, then you won't be able to handle anything on a macro. So I like to take people on a macro journey and show them the value of the macro journey, and so as to give them the confidence and the tools to just knock out anything that they need on the micro level. It's the three things I will always talk about is possibilities, potential, and promise. With possibilities, potential, and promise, everything and anyone is within reach. But you've got to really be intuitive in your thinking about that. And then you've got to be deliberative in your thinking and application of that. So intuitive thinking and deliberative thinking is what will lead next to commitment, implementation. And then, as I was telling Art, the difficult part is to sustain. Because, if you build an engine, then you've got to keep it running. But if you build 5,000 engines, you're going to need a big garage to keep that running. And you're going to need to be organized in order to keep 5,000 engines going, because each engine is going to demand some attention at some point. And no engine should be left behind at any point.
Words of wisdom. We got a few other people joining in. A blast from the past. I see Artie Wasif from the Newer Club. And also we got John Larrier, we got Jackie Lake, and quite a few others. So let's bring it back to the United States. Talking to you, one of the things that I found really interesting, you retired from Cablevision, but you were actually with your company before it became Cablevision. And you were one of the few people who was involved in the merger and acquisition and actually made it through.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about kind of how that happened in your experience? Because many people never get to experience something like that.
Yes, let me take, first let me thank everyone for being on this, in this experience with us, and for taking the time out to be with us. I value many of the people who I know that are on this, and I've spent a lot of years with them, and they've taught me a great deal, as much as they claim I've taught them. And I think that the folks that I don't know that are on this, they're free to contact me at any point, because I do want to know them, and I do want to assist them in anything that they need any assistance with. So let me just take some time to be abundantly grateful and show my gratitude to those who are on this, and also those who will watch this later after it is taped. To answer your question, I started out in sales and marketing. That was my profession. That was my training at Bowling Green State University. Some other years are that I used my tools and organizational skills to bring about transformation on that campus, along with a team and host of many people. We upended that campus and transformed it for the benefit of those who inhabited it at the time, because it was not very friendly when I got there. Needless to say, when I left there, it wasn't a better place. And so coming in with sales and marketing, with no experience, I couldn't find a job. When I moved to New Jersey about 10 or 11, about 10, almost 10 years after I got my degree, because I stayed behind in order to be a host family to the Black students who were on that campus who did not have a host family, no one to take their issues to. So I sacrificed time, my wife and I, and we became the open house family that took in and took care of a lot of folks with a lot of issues. And someday I should write a book about that one. So coming to Jersey, I just floundered. No one would hire me. I had no experience because I was working in a factory in Ohio. I had to work in a factory in order to sustain the lifestyle of helping people. I had to be flexible. And so working in a factory while I was a student, I just continued after my degree. Because it just fixed and helped everything that I was doing for everyone else and all the organizations I was active in. And when I got here, I paid the price for that. It was a sweet price. It was not one that I was, to this day, disappointed in, because the dots have a way of working themselves out. They really do. If you ask the questions, if you make the calls, if you introduce yourself to people, if you are honest and sincerely let them know what it is that you need, it will occur. And it did. 3 months after my arrival, I got my first sales job with Futurecraft, door to door, assigned to Bergen County, selling stemware, waterless cookware, and wine glasses, et cetera, out of a suitcase. And that was a hard experience in Bergen County, if those of you who understand what Bergen County is. But I had to be adjustable, and I had to find a way, and I found a way by, again, connecting dots with some of the people who lived in the neighborhood I was assigned to, and who I had to discover the right one and get the education of how this neighborhood works. And it worked. And then I got hired after that by Connection Cable. And getting that job was a sales job again, selling cable in the city of Newark, door to door, commission only. No benefits, no salary. I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week in order to feed my family. rose up through the ranks of that. And when they sold in when they sold in 86, I was asked to be on the transition team, the negotiation transition team, because at that time, I think I was sales manager. So I had this important position of dealing with the numbers because each subscriber had a value to the buyer and the seller. So being in the room while the negotiation was taking place on the transition team exposed me to a higher level of dots and a wider level of dots and knowledge of how the financial world works. And working the streets of Newark, door-to-door sales, and then ending up in the suites in New York, dealing with a sale that was a value of, I think at the time, 37 million or 36 million, opened my eyes to a lot of things, needless to say. The new buyer, Peter Gilbert, who had owned Staten Island Cable and who changed Connection Cable to Gateway Cable, kept me on and made me director of sales and marketing. And no sooner had that happened that he passed away, and his daughter, I think about a few years later, decided she didn't want the property, asked me to be on the transition team of that one as it sold to Cablevision for 78 million. At that point, it was understandably that I knew my value. I knew how valuable my work, my dots, my personal organization, the networks that I had created locally, nationally, and internationally. I knew what could happen and what should happen. And I became intentional. I became mindful. I became more organized. I became more deliberate. I became more intuitive. And my dot world just expounded at that point. And when I left, I was director of government affairs and public affairs in the state of New Jersey for Cablevision.
You've seen a lot of great things. You've been involved in a lot of great things. 1 hour is not even enough time to crack the surface of, all the great knowledge and wisdom that you have, that you've shared. And, one of the key things that when I'm working with a business owner, I always ask them one question. The first question is, what is your most important job? Because if you don't know your most important job, how are you going to do a good job? So, when you're a business owner, think about the most important job, and it's S&M, and it's not the S&M you're thinking about. It's actually sales and marketing.
Right.
And Don is a master at that. To be able to sell cable door to door, to be able to sell flatware door to door throughout New Jersey, especially in that time as an African-American male. Early on when I met Don, he schooled myself and Mike Robbins about how to sell effectively, which has been valuable to this day. We don't have a lot of time to go through it, but with the Small Business University that we put together, we actually have a course that we worked on content from Don. And it's really about helping you to be able to connect the dots, connecting the dots for success in life and business. And Don really goes into details of, how he developed his selling skills, how he connected the dots, and, really how he grew. And anyone who's in business, valuable stories about helping you to learn how to do your most important job better. And especially in this environment, Small Business Pro University, where you help business owners to learn, profit, and grow. We've got a few minutes.
I'd like to close again by thanking everyone profusely from the bottom of my heart and from the depth of my soul for taking the time to be on with us and to watch this recording later when they do. and to reach out to me if necessary for anything while you're on your journey, because I would really love sincerely to assist you in anything that I'm able to. In addition to that, I'd like to ask the individuals who are viewing this to don't just look around you with what challenge or obstacle that you have that you must overcome. Look behind you and look to those who preceded you to see what tools that they left with you in your toolbox that you haven't used and haven't opened or haven't picked up, who they introduced you to, who they put in touch with you that you haven't contacted and haven't utilized as you deal with your challenge and obstacle, and seek to find your path of progress towards success and a solution, because it does exist if you just take time to breathe, take time to figure out. It works. And as always, if you need assistance in doing so, reach out and find me, because I will do my utmost best in order to ensure that that happens.
I want to say thank you, Don. This really was a great hour, a lot of wisdom in there. And I think, you know, from the early years in Aruba, as a young person, and the journey through the boarding school in Jamaica, your multi-state tour on a Greyhound bus through America, it really is representative of you growing into your leadership role along the way at each step. I mean, you were a leader running the school in Jamaica. And I think each of us has a journey that's not dissimilar to Don's. Maybe we didn't go to boarding school in Jamaica. Maybe we didn't grow up in Aruba. But we have a story where we have experiences that we've gained, lessons that we've learned, mentors that we could model. And when we do that, the way Don did that, we all can take those lessons and parlay them into a future of being a service to other people. Being a leader means more than growing a great business and having a successful life. It means how much meaning do you make in the world? And if nothing else in this hour, Don has showed us that making meaning is where the magic is. And if you make meaning, everything else falls into place. So thanks, Don, for being a model for all of us and for sharing your wisdom tonight on Leadership Live. And thanks, Andrew, for having a relationship with Don where you can get him off his global tour and onto the show. So thank you both.
I also like to say in closing quickly, Andrew, that and Art, thank both of you for providing me with this opportunity. And I'd like to remind all the viewers again that I always look at life as a manual. It's a manual that we've been given and we have access to that we rarely use. And this manual has endless pages. We're fortunate to have access to the pages that precede the one that we're on. And so we can always go back to those chapters and pages to look up anything that we need to remind ourselves of. Because one day we will be a chapter in that manual when we're no longer here. And so what we do needs to be precise, needs to be organized, needs to be valuable, and needs to be committed so that when someone looks back at our chapter, they can learn quite a few lessons from it in order to advance their life.
Well said, very well said. And I know something I know Andrew and I talk about on this show all the time. As a leader, you've got to put the work in to get the value out. You've got to put the work in to get the value out. And the work that you do comes from great mentors and coaches and guides like the ones you'll find in the Small Business Pro University. So if you haven't been inside that university and taken a look around, you know you'll find Don's curriculum in there now, and there's a lot more. So like Andrew says in his book, the more you know, the faster you grow. And that's what Leadership Live on Tuesday nights is all about.